Welcome back, everybody, to season 2 of People Talking from a Social Distance. Today we have another fine guest who's going to give us a little bit of insight into their life outside of the building. So I thank you for being here again. I thank you for tuning in for these episodes. Those 3-part introductions, that was so last season. So today I have a fellow morning person and someone who shares my eclectic taste in music. We've got Mary Grimes here.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you on this fine day?
Good. It's nice. I know I have at least one other fellow early bird who's up and moving around in the morning, which I used to see you in the morning, but I'm definitely an early bird person and I like getting here when it's quiet.
Oh, 100%. I've talked with some of our other colleagues about silence, right? Because there's so much noise. And it's like, no, silence is where it's at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I want to thank you for being here today and for joining us. We're going to ask a couple questions and again, just sort of get a feel for some of our colleagues in the building through some of this conversation while we are, again, sort of socially distant from each other. So I often find when I do these interviews that people who are in education, that's really central to their identity and who they are as a person, whether it's teaching or being in guidance or really any sort of support in the building. But if you were going to apply a label to yourself outside of your profession, what would it be and why?
Okay, so before I give you that label, I am going to mention one thing, and I'm bringing it up not to chastise you specifically, but just to let all of our fellow staff members know as well, we are no longer guidance counselors. That is an outdated term, and you are not the only one who uses it. People use it all the time. We are counseling. And so I know it'll be a really hard term for people to get away from, but yeah, guidance is kind of an old term that we don't use anymore. So just for everybody to know, we are counseling, not guidance counselors. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I flipped it. I thought it was the other way around. All last night I was like, is it guidance or is it counselor? Is it guidance or is it counselor? I should have asked. That's on me. So you can.
It's fine. Not a problem. So I guess, and this seems a little pat answer, but I guess the answer would be mom. Mom is my greatest role in life. I have 4 kids. I have a stepdaughter, and then I have 3 of my own kids. My greatest joy is when the 4 of them get together, when we all get together and we're just sitting around chatting with each other and laughing. We play games together. And it's a very casual attitude. So that's why I like the holidays and why it was so heartbreaking this year to miss out on the way our holidays normally would be, because they would involve eating together, playing games, sharing stories, catching up. And not that I wasn't with some of my family over the holidays, but that, yeah. And being a mom of little kids is one thing. That's a great thing too. And my heart aches sometimes, like when I drive by North School and I think about my kids being kindergartners there, but having kids who are adults is a treat. It is a real treat. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been told as well from my mother. She's like, I enjoy you guys a lot more now that you don't live in my house. So.
Yes. And in fact, sometimes when the kids will talk to me about, yeah, this or that, or thinking of moving kind of, and I said to somebody, I don't want my kids to move back into my house with me. I'm pretty set in my ways now. So even an adult that I know can do their own laundry, I think, oh, yeah.
Excellent. And I think that, again, goes into, like, obviously, I can't speak from experience as being a parent, but like the job of parenting is very similar to the job of counseling. There's some overlap there in terms of like having a vested interest in the future of someone else. It's again, I just keep on seeing this with everyone I interview, that there's sort of an intertwining of what they do in the building and what they choose to do outside of it as well, or how they identify outside of it. So.
Sure. And I used to even say whether I was in the classroom or in this office, I don't do it quite so much anymore, but my kids, or I love my students kind of thing. So I definitely have strong feelings about the kids that I work with. Yeah.
Excellent. And I think we didn't plan these transitions, but that seems to be a great place to move into our second question, which is, What's one way, or maybe multiple ways, that your profession has helped sort of shape or embolden your passions? And can you give us an example?
Okay, so I do have to tell you that one of the things that I talked about with people during the shelter and when it started and everybody was like, develop a passion, crochet, this, that. And I said to people, I don't really know what my passion is. I kind of went from a high schooler to a college student to a teacher. I got married, I had kids, I raised my kids, and then my kids left. And now I kind of find that there is a little bit of a hole in my life where I'm trying to figure out what is my passion. I am a pre-retiree, as in I'm going to be putting my letter in pretty soon for my 4-year notification of retirement. And one of the things I've been thinking about is traveling once I am retired. And I've never been out of the United States and would like to go somewhere outside, but really want to spend a lot of time traveling and getting to know my own country. So I guess my budding passion is travel and getting around the country. Right now, it's not really a passion, but a drive I have is to go through all of my possessions and weed everything down so that when I retire, I literally can go and do what it is I want to do. When my mom and dad both passed away, they had lived in the same house for 50 years. It took us forever to go through all of their stuff. And I said I would never do that to my kids. So that's another drive that I have, is to go through things and just get rid of them, because when they open a box and look at pictures of people I went to college with, they're going to be like, who are these people and why do we have these pictures? So that's been kind of a drive of mine too, which hopefully leads to a passion of getting in an RV and driving off, because now I live in a 2-room apartment and I don't have to worry about being planted in one space.
Fantastic. Yeah. Also, great callback to Matt's interview talking about weeding things out as well. Are there any specific places within the United States or even outside that you're really looking forward to, or that you know you want to hit?
Well, my sister and brother-in-law live in Bend, Oregon, and I went to visit them for the first time last year. They have lived there for years and years, and I had never gone. And I went with 2 other siblings, and we were there for 7 days, not counting the traveling. And we saw a ton of things. My brother-in-law drove us everywhere. We saw all kinds of sights, but I would like to go back and see more of that area. And really, I want to stay in a log cabin in the wintertime with a fireplace. My other cousin, I have a cousin in Minnesota. He and his wife built their log cabin. And I'd like to go stay with them. They have bears that come on their property, and like they are literally in the woods. I'd like to go to Florida and see my friend who retired. But when I go, I want to go for a length of time. I don't want to just go for a week. I want to go long enough that I can spend some quality time with them and still see what is in that surrounding area. I love the mountains, despite the fact that I have a poster of the beach that's from Nan Phillips gave me that. And I do love that picture, and I think a lot of people like seeing it. But for me, I like the mountains.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm all about the mountains, the cold, the desolate. I've had a yearning to go to like Maine, Vermont, that sort of area. So I can see where that's coming from. Well, I mean, good luck on your travels, and I'm sure they'll be awesome. The next place we go usually is we try to recommend things. So trying to sort of give our colleagues a sort of sense of who we are through the things that we enjoy to either watch or read or listen to. So if you were to recommend a book or a movie or show or even an album that helps sort of shape your worldview or sort of gives people an insight into the way that you think, what would it be and why?
Okay. The English people are going to absolutely despise this answer, but Stephen King's The Stand is one of my favorite books. And when all of this started, I would say to people, have you read The Stand? Do you see where this could go? But not just because of that. It's because of the idea that in the beginning of the book, when the population is depleted, there is there are these bands of good people who get together and work together to try and bring the world back to some normalcy. And I love that idea that things can go completely to trash and that people will come together and fix them and try to make things as livable and normal as possible. It, you know, it gives you the bad side of people too, and why maybe people go to that kind of side, but it gives you a lot of good too. And it does kind of speak to the way people respond to things when they kind of go to trash, because we saw what happened when people started going to the grocery store and hoarding toilet paper and charging $15 for a bottle of sanitizer this big. So I think he speaks very well to human nature, and I always have in many of his books, and that one in particular. So I did revisit it a little bit. I didn't reread the whole thing, but I know that when we could get books online through the public library, it took 6 weeks for me to get it online. And then my sister went to a used bookstore and got it for $1 and gave it to me. So
as a person who also dabbles in the dystopian and future and sci-fi stuff, I found it very, very weird to read that sort of stuff during the pandemic, right? Like my book list, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back and read like The Plague by Camus, or maybe Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which is all about like a flu virus destroying the population, or some Aldous Huxley. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should read some lighter stuff.
Yeah, that is true. Yes. And you know, it just how people do. People are very predictable. People are going to go crazy. Some people are going to be okay. And some people are going to make some poor choices. And that's humans. There's never one straight, narrow path.
Agreed, 100%. And so I guess you kind of showed us one of your fandoms. And again, I doubt that any of the English people will be too upset that you chose Stephen King's. As much as there's other literature out there, he's, I mean, pretty prolific author. He's got a pretty big spot in the American culture. But are there any other like surprising fandoms or things that if you told people, or if you didn't tell them, they would never guess that you were a fan of or that you enjoyed?
Well, you know, but I don't think everybody in the school knows that I'm a Pink Floyd fan. And I mean, Pink Floyd, like, I love them. If I had to go to a desert island and bring an album, it would be Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall. Okay, this is weird, but I know that I used to talk about kids who would watch other people play video games online, and I think that is the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. And then I started somehow in my YouTube feed started getting people reacting to music that they had never heard before. There are these twins, and I'm sure most people have seen them. They listen to Phil Collins and Dolly Parton's Jolene, and they react to it. But anyway, I found multiple videos of people responding to the song Time on Dark Side of the Moon and weeping, listening to it, because it's really about, you know, how fast time goes, how we age, how one day you look around and you're the old person, and, you know, and I believe, and I know this is in the song, and I'm going to get the lyrics wrong, despite hearing it a million times, and it says, one day older and one day closer to death, which sounds so like, ugh, who would want to hear that in the song? But when he sings it in the song, it doesn't have that kind of death knell sound to it. So, yeah. And I think most people, especially if our students knew that I listened to Pink Floyd, they would be surprised. But yeah.
I was thinking about this last night when I was sort of prepping for our interview this morning, because I was hoping you were going to bring that up. And I remember in your when you emailed about joining the podcast, you were very like, if you want a different perspective, read older. And I don't want to play up
Yeah.
the age difference too much, but I was thinking about this idea with the psychedelic music, and I think part of what I find so interesting about it, and maybe you do as well, is that it kind of splits that divide, right? Like there's a very sophisticated aspect of it that's very like elevated and sort of older, but there's that like childlike enthusiasm that also pervades it. You see
Yes.
that in Floyd, you see that in King Crimson, you see that in a lot of that stuff. So
Yes.
is that something that you like? Have you been a Floyd fan for a long time in your life, and so you've sort of
Oh yeah.
you through that as well? Like you loved it
Yes.
as a younger person.
Okay. So you know this again, but not everybody does, that at one time I was a Barry Manilow fan. I was a Fanilow, but I was very young, so don't hold it against me. I was young. So I was kind of listening to that kind of more pop music. And then, gosh, I don't know how old I was. And my sister, who was 5 years older than me and extremely cool, I mean, her boyfriend drove a station wagon that had a sticker that was a piano keyboard, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. They gave me Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Four-Way Street, which is a double live album, and they gave me Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I have had the album, the CD, and the cassette. I didn't have the 8-track because we were kind of on the cusp of 8-track and cassettes when I was in high school. But yes, I had that in many different forms from when I was a teenager, like I would say 14 or 15.
Yeah, and aren't those are, and I mean, I from an English perspective had the same thing happen with books as with music, but it's always awesome when there's that like that turning point where you're like, whoa, like the first time I heard Immortal Techniques Revolutionary Volume 1, and I was like, well, hip hop can actually be good. Or the first time I read Catcher in the Rye, and I'm like, what is going on here? So
right.
It's just great, and I think that also speaks to just sort of the lifelong aspect of it, of like this is something that's been a part of you and that you've continued to grow as a fan towards, and that's
yes.
Just
and I
beautiful.
do have to mention as well to the audience that I just think it's so cool because like when you mentioned King Crimson, and I didn't think anybody else in this building knew who King Crimson was. And you've got your Zappa picture back there. And I personally am not. I have to say I'm not a big Zappa fan, but my son is. And so, and then I spoke to a student that I kind of connect with once a week, and he mentioned Zappa, and I'm like, hey, did you know that Mr. Daddario is a big Zappa fan kind of thing? And it's lovely to find those, there are certain types of music that you find generally people like, but there are those offshoots that when you hear other people like them, you're like, that's so cool. I just love that. And yeah. And, in my mind, I am still a 25-year-old listening to this music. I look in the mirror and know how old I am. And there are things that happen that kind of bring me back to how old I am. But truly, when I'm talking about music, I'm 25, 20 to 25 years old again. So
That's awesome. That's great. Our last place we go in our interview is we kind of give you some different places to sort of just give us some more info. And so the first one that you decided you wanted to answer, and I'm excited for this as a person who's gotten more into cooking, and obviously I think everyone knows the baking at this point for me. But what's a favorite food to make or eat, and or favorite place to go get food for you?
Okay, so for 2 Christmases now, I've made tiramisu for Christmas dessert. And it's not extremely hard to make, and yet tiramisu has such a following with people that I want to make one that people like, which in this case is my family. So, and I'm always certain when I cook that what I'm making is not going to turn out. And it has both times. And I really enjoy making it, and I really like that, it comes out well and people like it. But I do have to say it's hard to find ladyfingers in this area. And so you have to go to the grocery store in Genoa. Anybody who wants to make tiramisu, that's where I found them. They have a whole wall of them. So, but yeah. And then I know people make a lot of what they call cowboy caviar, which is a bean and corn and tomatoes and green onions. I had that recipe way back, and I know my son was a baby, like 1998. I remember my mother-in-law bringing jars of it on vacation once, and I got the recipe then. And that was a recipe that when I would give it to people, they would say, oh my God, yeah, my family loves that. We eat that all the time. So that was always a recipe I was proud to hand off to other people. But I know there are different iterations of it, and lots of people make that as well. So, yeah.
From what you just said from it, I'd be interested in that recipe. So.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure. But I do make bread. I don't make it frequently anymore simply because I have been trying to eat healthier. And so I can't have 2 loaves of bread in my house because I don't have anybody to eat it. And so hopefully once everything opens up again and we're able to, like, and I know we can give people food. It's just something I'm cautious about. But my hope is once things open up again and we're able to gather again, I can get back into baking bread again because, yeah.
I know that pain. Like I'm every time I bake bread, I'm like trying to preload. Like, who wants the other loaf? Like, I'm going to have 2 loaves. One of these has to be out of my house because I will eat all of it. Like, please take my bread.
Yes.
So I can get where that's going. The other question you had suggested you had an answer for, and I'm always excited when people pick this one, is what's something you would change about the world? And obviously, when this is being recorded, there's probably quite a few things we can think of, but what's something that you would like to change in the world?
So I would change, and I don't even know how this would work. I would change the way social platforms create their algorithms and narrow down what we're all seeing. There's a documentary out there, and I don't know the name of it. It's on Netflix. And I'm going to mention his name, and my counseling coworkers are going to roll their eyes because I've mentioned him multiple times. I just got HBO Max on my phone, and I will eventually get it on my TV, folks, but I haven't at this point. And I watched Bill Maher tonight, and he kind of rubs me the wrong way. He's not always my cup of tea, but early in November, he had an episode where he and his guest A predicted what was going to happen this last week. But B, he did have a gentleman on who did a documentary about social media and the fact that you and I have our point of view based on the clicks that we've made, and the people over here have their point of view, and we only know what we know because of what we see and hear from other people in social platforms. And obviously we know that many of the points of view that led to what happened on Wednesday are because of what people are seeing on social media. And so I think social media opens our world, but it narrows our world view. And that if you don't watch TV, if you don't read a paper, if you don't interact with other people with different points of view, that's what leads to the disasters that we saw, I believe, last week. Because, and in fact, I hesitate to say this, but I will tell you this. I heard last night from someone who said that something big was going to be happening. They also made a statement about how the Pope had been arrested for sexual abuse. And I didn't have a direct conversation with this person, but I heard it from someone else and literally typed in the word Pope. I knew he hadn't been, but I typed in the word Pope and scrolled up and it said, nope, the Pope has not been arrested for sexual abuse. But this person had obviously been on a social platform, had read this, and in their head truly believed that this is something that had occurred. And also believes that something big is going to happen, which we all kind of know there's something cooking. But, you know, what it is, that person thinks, I don't know what it is. So.
It's very interesting because I heard that very same thing yesterday secondhand as well from my brother, who heard it from someone who heard it off social media. So you're right. I have no idea what that would look like, but I think that's a real, it's a great goal in terms of we understand how our perceptions are manipulated. Let's do something about it to maybe not make it as much of a divide between people.
Right. Right.
That's not the happiest of notes to end on, but a good one to end on.
Yes,
So.
yes. And I will say that despite all of that, I agree with many of the people who've been on TV who said, you know, we're going to be okay. Things will get better. We're kind of in this upheaval, and after upheaval and chaos, typically things do kind of settle down, and I expect our world will do that. I'm looking outside. It is a little bit of a gray day, but the sun is going to rise. We are going to go through our days just like we always do. And eventually it will be summer and sunny, and we'll have blue skies, and our kids will be here. And yeah, I am definitely optimistic that there is still good out there, despite the fact that we ended on more of a somber note.
No, and way to pull that nosedive right back up. I didn't plan that, everybody. That was off the cuff. Mary Grimes giving us some optimism. So I want to thank you for taking some time out in this early morning. This is the first time I've done one of these in the morning. I was a little bit worried. I was like, I haven't had like 4 cups of tea. How is this going to work? You've been a great person to talk to. I think it's been a nice, easy conversation. I want to thank you for talking to me from a social distance, and thank you again for your time.
Sure thing. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Have a good day.